right then, welcome to Backseat Designers, a very special episode. You may have noticed we've been off the air for a while. That's really what seasons are all about. But it's not like we've, just been sitting picking our asses. We have actually been moonlighting over on this other little minuscule show, which is my own show, The Space Quest Historian. And my two lovely co-hosts are both involved in that, both in the capacity of writing and also voice acting, which is very, very strange. It's a scripted show, not a off-the-cuff pub-ish discussion over beers kind of show like this one is. Maybe I should stop rambling and just introduce my two lovely co-hosts. Over to the left on my screen, we have the fantastic and wonderful Frederick Cunnilingus Face Olsen.
I know not this acting you speak of, you vile mortal! I mean, hello.
And over to my right, we have the esteemed, gratifyingly bearded Gareth the Cards Were Shit Millwood.
Hello.
You alright, fella?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm alright, fella. Yeah, just doing my thing.
These two lovely people are on the other show that I just mentioned. Frederick, of course, voices Cyber Cedric, and Gareth plays Pete Tolman, the CEO with a heart of shit.
Cyber Cedric voices himself!
Like perched on your shoulder or something. With us also today, we have a lovely guest, and this was actually the impetus for doing this little off-season, off-Broadway show.
You call me impotent.
No. No.
Okay, just clarifying.
Said impetus. Maybe I should turn the mic gain up for a bit. No.
We have a fetus with us.
I'm just setting the tone.
we have a very special guest, and he has come on the show to discuss something that is very near and dear to his heart, and you might guess what that might be when I tell you that he is in fact Shawn Mills, co-founder of soon-to-be not anymore Infamous Quests, developers of Quest for Infamy and Order of the Thorn, and two upcoming games which will be their collective swan song. So hello, Shawn, how you doing?
Hello, mates. How's it all going?
Hello.
It's all going.
Was that very Australian?
Well.
That's my
Australian enough.
Well, we wanted to make you comfortable, Shawn. So I got online and I recorded a few phrases to just make you feel like you're in an Aussie-friendly environment. So we've got
by Jingo,
and we've got
bloody whinging bombs.
I suppose,
and of course, the most famous Aussie phrase of all.
I'm not racist. I'm just careful.
I'm sorry. I think you're going to have to play those again because I missed the first two and I laughed on the third one.
No worries, mate. Bloody whinging bombs. I'm not racist. I'm just careful.
Those are very, very good. How do you feel now, Shawn? Are you more comfortable?
Oh, that's awesome. And probably true that I've used those in the last 24 hours. So.
Well, I've got Cyber Cedric perched on one shoulder and Mel Gibson on the other, so that'll really make you more comfortable.
The South Park style Mel Gibson. Braveheart face, jumping around, screeching.
I thought South Park style Mel Gibson was just Mel Gibson. Well, anyways.
Close enough. Anyway, we did...
do you remember when he was a good actor?
Oh, sorry. Oh.
I remember when he wasn't a complete fucking lunatic.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, we did bring Mr. Mills onto the show for a reason, but I'd rather let him explain why himself, in his own words. 20 words or less. There will be a test at the end of it.
Ooh, 20 words or less. That makes it hard.
Just go for it. Ramble all you want, sir.
Always use the majority of the 20 words.
Yeah, those count.
If the majority of my 20 words are probably shit fucking cunt, but...
Those are good words.
Oh, look, well, actually, this came about because me and Fred were talking about... Can I call you Freddy? Is that all right?
You certainly can.
Good.
Yes, you can.
Excellent.
If you call me Mercury, someone will sue.
Well, he won't. He's dead. We were talking on some social media platform about adventure games and the state of adventure games. It all came about, obviously, because we've announced that pending the release of our next two games, which are already in production, quite far in production, we're probably going to call it stumps, to use a British expression. So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot lot of things behind it, but I mean, bottom line, we're just not selling enough games, and it appears to me that there's a lot of other adventure game companies out there, or adventure game groups or whatever, that just aren't doing this, aren't selling well either. In fact, I don't really see that many that are selling well.
No, in fact, something interesting that happened, if I may butt in, was over on Twitter. Jacob Janerka, our friend of Paradigm fame, play the clip, Gareth.
Fat as bitches.
Exactly, that guy. He did a little adventure game mock-up of this Netflix series called Stranger Things, which is wildly popular. You know, everyone I've talked to loves it. And Ron Gilbert of Monkey Island fame actually responded in kind of a surly manner to that instead of retweeting, yeah, that Monkey Island, that Ron Gilbert, instead of retweeting that over and over again, how about people actually buy some fucking point-and-click games? And you know, he probably wouldn't be saying that if he was selling well.
Well,
No.
in Ron Gilbert's defense, he is a fucking legend. I've had the pleasure of having a couple of good conversations with him in real life at a couple of conventions that I've been to. He's just absolutely fantastic. Knows his shit.
Well, I wasn't attacking Ron, actually.
No.
I was only implying that it appears he has his motivations for writing such a tweet.
Not to shit on your theory, but he hasn't actually released Thimbleweed Park yet. So
I was just going to say, his previous games have not actually been very adventure-y. I think the closest we got was The Cave, and it was kind of a non-adventure adventure.
Well, Monkey Island, I think, defines adventure games.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, it's still a comment on the state of the industry, certainly. I mean, if he himself hasn't released any adventure games recently, then he has several friends who has, or acquaintances.
Yeah. Definitely. He's a man who's always had his finger on the pulse of the industry, even though he hasn't been involved in it, as in the adventure game genre, I suppose, because he's been doing a lot of other stuff. But he's right. he's absolutely fucking right.
If I may get my finger on the pulse, just to be an asshole for a bit.
Leave your flesh noodle alone.
Yeah, okay. Well, actually, I'm more interested in exploring my own cavities. If I may interject for a moment, can you just tell us, because I know you've told me this figure, so it's probably not a secret, but your last game, Order of the Thorn, how many copies have you sold this far?
I'm pretty sure it's hovering around the 1,000 mark.
1,000, that's not a whole lot.
That's absolutely fucking pathetic. It's, I'm sorry, just to be perfectly blunt, 1,000 copies is about $10,000 at full price. And I'm going to pretend that we got full price for all of those because we did have a launch discount. But, excuse me. So let's say that's 10 grand for 9 months' work, split between 2 full-timers and about 4 part-timers. Not a lot of money. No, can't make games for that. Bottom line, you can't survive on that. And the basic fact of computer games, not just adventure games, is they sell in a big burst at launch, and then it trails off, and then you can boost those numbers as time down the track with sales and bundles, and I'm more than happy to get into my feelings on bundles later, but they're used properly, technically, I suppose, as a way to increase sales once the game's been out for a while. Yeah. Maybe spread it around a bit, but adventure games, yes. People will say adventure games have a very long tail, which means they sell for a long time, and yes, that's true. But the Quest for Infamy, for example, is close to 2 years, I suppose, since it was released. Yes, we're still selling games every month, but 10 copies a month, 20 copies a month, or something. Minuscule like that barely covers the, by the time Steam or GOG or whatever take their cut,
So what
You
was
know.
your, what were your expectations, if I may ask a slightly leading question? Because people have always been very positive towards your work.
Mhm.
Certainly, my impression of it when you look on social media and the like.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
apart from the math not hanging together, and you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that, how is this figure so fucking disappointing?
That's the big question, isn't it? Why are they not selling? And I can only speak to our games, but I really do infer a lot of it. You look at, what was that, Kathy Rain? That was critically acclaimed and sold fuck all. So according to them, they released a big statement about it saying that it sold really poorly. I hope that's the right game, otherwise I've got egg on my face there. But
we can get rid of libel in post.
Yes.
Beautiful. I just clarify a point I said. When I said, we sell them at $10 a pop and that's 10 grand, it comes down to about 7 grand after you pay, the different providers, but suppliers, so less than that. But anyway, I suppose if we'd made Off Order of the Thorn being a smaller game, 10,000 copies would have been a reasonable number at full price.
Right.
Okay, so it's hard because that sounds like a big number to some people, and it probably sounds like a very small number to other people. But everyone in this conversation right now, and probably a lot of people listening, are in adventure game groups and stuff on Reddit and Facebook and everything else. And look at the number of people in those groups of people who profess to like adventure games. They're not buying them.
That's actually
they're not buying.
Yeah, that's the interesting point that I kind of wanted to get into, which is that there seems to be a very, very disproportionate amount of zeitgeist towards which adventure games sell very well and which don't. Off the top of my head, I can point to games like games that have a certain marketing budget. That would be like Life is Strange or supposedly the new King's Quest, even though that's not really selling as well. And then you have Wadget Eye, which have consistently put out games that through word of mouth somehow hit this zeitgeist that Wadget Eye can do no wrong and therefore only release good games. So they apparently sell pretty well as well. But on the whole, the people at Phoenix Online have been putting out games that have been very critically acclaimed and have sold very poorly. And they put out games that weren't quite as good, and they've been selling equally poorly. So it's kind of, how do you think this whole, what makes a game sell very well? It can't possibly be just marketing.
I don't think it's marketing because Dave Gilbert, Wadget Eye, I don't think he does much marketing. That's just off the top of my head. I think you hit the nail on the head when you said a lot of his is word of mouth. Because he released them.
He's told me personally he does no marketing, like paid marketing. It's all word of mouth.
I was pretty sure he told me that too. I just couldn't quite. I didn't want to just lock that down in case I was wrong, because I don't want to. The last thing I would ever do is shit on anything Dave does, because he is absolutely one of the best guys in the industry that I know, and his games are absolutely fucking fantastic every time.
Agreed.
Well, not every time. There are a couple of ones I didn't really enjoy that much, but that's all right. He's released so many, it doesn't matter. Because everybody doesn't like everything. I think Dave is an exception to the rule, though. I think Wadget is a complete exception to the rule. I think he does a lot of things right. He's got a style. He just owns what he does. His style of games, he completely owns it, and he does it 110% perfectly. I think, to bring out the old chestnut of Sierra versus LucasArts, I think that's a very, very valid thing. I think anything Sierra related has been an abject failure in the last since the post-Kickstarter bubble. I think every Sierra related product or Sierra style product has been an abject failure. Anything that has gone along the LucasArts line, which Dave does, and those sorts of games, they have been the ones that have been more successful. The ones that are not puzzle orientated, they're story orientated, they are the successful ones. The more puzzly orientated games, I don't think are selling. I personally think, and if I had a punch-up fight about it, I would always say that I prefer Sierra games. But I think in the modern market, I think they absolutely fail. I don't think there's many redeeming.
Yeah, I think you got a point there actually, because games that have sold really well, the story-oriented games, usually have, I wouldn't say simplistic interfaces, but that's kind of it. It doesn't require as much on the player, and it doesn't feel as much of a throwback. Even the one I mentioned, Life is Strange, has a sort of a context menu. It doesn't, it's not that abstract from the game world. And you've got games like, Gone Home and the Stanley Parable, which are very akin to first-person games, so that's an inherent mechanic. Anything Sierra related. And I'm talking strictly about the mechanics. I know you also meant anything that has that it kind of smells like the Sierra design philosophy throwbacks like that.
Lots of the Sierra design philosophy is based around mechanics. I mean, I would argue that frequent player death is a mechanic because it kind of influences how you play the game if you're going through that whole trial and death thing.
Oh yeah, but I mean just strictly in the sense that you have an interface to get used to, and that interface is even a throwback to a bygone era, so to speak. And even though people like the interface, they're usually of the diehard old school.
They say they do, but they don't buy the games.
There it is. And why do you suppose? I suppose my question actually is, if Infamous Quests were actually looking to the hardcore Sierra veterans, and the veterans specifically who were saying we would love to play another Quest for Glory-ish game, or we would love to play another King's Quest-y game, why the hell aren't they buying it then?
If I may just interject, one thing I find very interesting about your observation, Shawn, is that there is also a discord in how passionate the Sierra fans are. And I mean, this show alone is a testament to the fact that Sierra fans are fucking passionate. I mean, Trolls, Gareth and I go back to 2001 or 2. I worked at a fucking Space Quest fan game for 9 years. I know what I'm talking about. We're a passionate bunch.
I did not know that. So you were on what, Space Quest 7? Was that?
I was on Valhalla Strikes Back, which released. Space Quest 7 was cancelled. Unfortunately, Trolls was on that. But we are a passionate fucking bunch. We just don't buy the games. Now, back to you, Trolls. You had a question for Shawn, I believe.
I think I'm done. I think Shawn now has 2 questions to answer.
Well, then I don't remember the question.
I'll throw in a third when he's done.
Oh, you got a third one, Gareth?
Yeah, well, we'll wait for Shawn to answer this one first.
All right.
Or 2.
Yep. Sorry,
which one's do you?
Again?
All right. The first one, and I can also remember Fred's. The first one is, why do you think the hardcore Sierra veterans, whom you are clearly catering to, say that they want to play a Quest for Glory-ish game or a King's Quest-y game, and then when one comes out, they don't actually pick it up and buy it?
I don't think they actually want to play a new game. I think they want to replay the same game that they remember from their memory. And that's why I think they're also more passionate, because it means something to them. It takes them back to their childhood. I played, my example, the reason I'm such a passionate Sierra fan, I played Hero Quest of Glory 1. I've got very vivid memories of the first PC game I ever played. I played it taught me to type. I played it with both my brothers and my father all together. And I remember taking months to get through it. I was pretty young. So, there's a lot of intrinsic memories of those early games, and I think that's what a lot of it is. I think they like the nostalgia of it. I think exactly what Netflix are doing with Stranger Things, as we were talking about earlier. It's tapping into a nostalgia. But I think with the Sierra fans, it's about the nostalgia. I don't think it's actually about adventure games, and I don't think it's about new games.
Well, just before we get to Fred's question, Quest for Infamy leaned very heavily on the established, tropes of the Quest for Glory games. You had combat,
Absolutely.
you had the same interface even, and you had kind of the same style of graphics, and it was very well done.
You nearly had the same title.
Almost, yeah. So it was. I mean, even though it wasn't designed by Laurie and Corey Cole, it was still it smelled so much of Quest for Glory that you could swear it came out in 1993.
Yep. Oh, that's good. That's actually the promotional logo we used for it. Game you wish you'd played in 1993. Yes, I agree with everything you just said. To discuss the sales of our two games as separate things, Quest for Infamy did sell a lot better than Order of the Thorn in that initial burst. Our initial Kickstarter was a lot bigger. Someone should take a list, by the way, take notes of things I say. We should come back to that. I'm happy to talk about that because Kickstarter is another one we can add to that list.
I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes. What was I saying? Quest for Infamy did sell a lot better. We've sold quite a few copies, but in the vicinity of, actually off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how many copies we've sold. But a lot of them went. The production costs were a lot higher. It's a lot bigger game. There's 200 unique rooms in that game compared to Quest for Glory 1, which has like 60 or 70 or something. So, it's a bloody big game, and we put a lot of ideas into that, and that's literally a third of the game that we originally had planned anyway. But, there was a lot of work in that game. So, on the profit side of things, if you just want to just talk money, on the profit side of things, it was as equally unsuccessful because we didn't make any money out of it, So, you've got to have money to buy shoes.
Oh yeah, exactly. Fred, I forgot your question.
I don't think my mouth is full of crisps, incidentally. I don't think it was.
Are you even in this discussion anymore?
I'm binge eating while Shawn is talking. Basically, I didn't think so much. It wasn't so much a question as it was just.
The fucking passionate thing.
An interjection about Sierra fans being passionate. It wasn't really a question as such. But I mean, it worked its way into Shawn's statement beautifully.
All right.
Well, one of the things that sort of gave Infamous Adventures and then Quests kind of a following event is the remake of Quest 2. And so my kind of thing following on from that is, are we a little bit blinded by the relative success within our communities of fan remakes or fan versions of previous games? Because they are very popular. They tie into that.
Okay. I'll two things. First of all, you're cutting in and out for me. I don't know if you are for the other guys. I did grasp what you said then, but
a little bit, but it got better towards the end of it.
Yeah.
Basically, I think you need to stop bobbing your head, Gareth.
Nice. Firstly, I will just mention that our King's Quest 3 remake has about 600,000 unique downloads, and our Space Quest 2 remake has more than that.
And if I may interject, that is way more than we got for Valhalla Strikes Back. And I was actually angry with you guys back in the day because we just released our game and thought, well, people have been crying for a Space Quest sequel for ages. Here's one. And it got fuck all downloads. And you literally went out with your game a couple of months later and you grabbed all the fucking downloads. I couldn't believe it. I mean,
but you guys grabbed all the press. We were equally pissed. You guys grabbed all the press that we built up for it. So shut up.
Yeah, and the one person who got left behind in all of this was Space Quest Incineration, Krasushko.
Which is actually the better game. But yeah, sorry, Shawn,
but interestingly, it all comes back to what Shawn said previously. People were hungering for a Space Quest sequel. They got not one but two, and then Infamous comes out with a remake of a game that they've already played, and the downloads are astronomical.
And I mean,
everything we played except it's 1993.
Cedric, calm the fuck down.
But the core thing about all three of those games was that they were available for free, and I think that gives people a very skewed idea of how much it costs to make a game. It's very expensive. I mean, you were talking about how $10,000 is certainly nowhere near enough to pay. To pay for food and a roof over your head. I mean, ignoring all of the other costs that come into it. So I was just wondering really whether you were able to give any kind of ballpark figures for how much it actually costs just to make the game, and let alone make any kind of profit on it.
You're the numbers man. Tonight you're talking exclusively in numbers.
649 1169. Sorry, we're just talking exclusively in numbers.
I like you ended on a 69. That was brilliant.
Oh, I had to throw that one in there.
Don't we all?
Actually, a question, Fred. How many? Just for our answer, how many downloads did you get for the original Space Quest?
I have no idea. I might be able to get the Google Analytics page up while you're talking, because I know we have one of those. But I mean, I was expecting them to skyrocket, perhaps a bit naively. But once we made that initial announcement back in, I think it was December 2011, early or late December, I'd expected downloads in the hundreds, but we were looking at perhaps 100. No, not more than that, certainly. And we did get some press, but I don't think we got more downloads out of it. I'm actually in there. I'm actually in there right now. I'm sorry if this is. Whoa, they've changed their interface around. I'm gonna butt in whenever I can, and you just keep talking. I'll holler.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so as for numbers, look, our two games are a bit unique, I guess, in that Quest for Infamy is probably a better... Quest for Infamy is a very hard example because it's a lot bigger game than I would make now, and it's not relative to the size of other games. If I look at Wadjai as the standard, Quest for Infamy is, ridiculously, probably got 3 times the assets of one of Dave's regular games. He's got big ones, but
okay.
Whereas Order of the Thorn was different again because it started off as a King's Quest fan game, so we had a lot of those assets there, which is why it had a lot lower production cost. But if I was to make a new game, you basically... There's a theory out there, and I won't name names, but there is a theory out there that you need to be paying your staff full-time wages. And I disagree with that in the modern... I think 25 years ago, when some people worked for Sierra and were employed full-time to draw all day, that was fine. In the modern world, that is not the way employment works. In those sort of industries, you're paid what I would call a piece rate or a contract. You're contracted... for a certain amount of money to deliver a certain amount of goods. So, in that respect, I don't know, figure out at the top of my head, a game like Order of the Thorn, I think would cost about $50,000-$60,000. I think you could get away with if we paid for it all up front and push production back into probably a 6-month time frame.
That's... I don't think... I think people see that, okay, you managed to produce the Space Quest 2 VGA remake for free, so why does it even matter? And I think, aside from all of these other problems that we can clearly point to about there being a little bit of a disconnect between what people say they want and what they're actually willing to pay for, it does seem that the people's ideas of the economics of adventure games, simply because they're not, AAA titles anymore, that somehow they're very, very cheap and easy to make, and that's clearly not true.
Okay, well, number one, adventure games are one of the hardest genres to make because there are not reusable assets. You talk about a game like, Call of Duty or something like that, a shooter, even the new Doom, you're going through levels and killing demons. There's 5 demon models in a level, but you're still killing 150 of them,
Yeah.
So you can't do that in an adventure game. Every character is a unique model, whether it's 2D, 3D, or whatever. There's a lot more investment in story because that's supposedly what adventure games are about.
I like you threw supposedly in there.
Well, because I don't particularly subscribe to adventure games that are only about story.
No, me neither. But there's a fine line between a walking simulator and fucking Discworld.
Yes, that's true.
Anyway, carry on. I interrupted.
Yeah, no, you're right. Interrupt away. I'll just
That's
keep
what we
rambling on into various tangents.
Do. Please do. I just want to make sure you get your say in, because that's why we have you on the show.
Exactly.
So I'm kind of sitting on my hands at certain points where I want to jump in, and Frederick apparently does not have this problem.
No,
but
I just, I don't give a fuck.
I love you, man.
I only sit on my hand for one reason, and I haven't had to do that as much since I got married. So,
where's that ding,
You guys
Gareth?
crack me the fuck up.
That's even better.
Can't tell if that was the.
That's brilliant. We went in completely naively, exactly what Fred was saying about his Space Quest. We went in very naively with the amount that we thought we'd sell of Quest for Infamy based on how many we gave away for nothing. I think you're right, Gareth. I think there is a complete non-understanding to the point with some people that I've argued with about it or I've seen talk about it, of being willfully not understanding the actual costs of making a game, and just the fact that the reality of to use, I guess, the Western world, the capitalist world, is that you need to get money for shit. You can't spend 2 years making a game just to make people feel good that they've enjoyed a game.
Absolutely.
We did that with our Space Quest and King's Quest 3, but we worked on Space Quest 2 for, obviously part-time because we were all working, 5 years, 6 years, something along those lines, and also working on them for free. You can't, as an employer, tell people they need to get something in by a certain time.
No, exactly.
There are problems, particularly probably in King's Quest 3 more than Space Quest 2, where the art quality is noticeably different between different areas because we've had different artists working on it, and we just don't have someone who's willing to go in, which we do on a commercial game. We might have different artists working in the backgrounds, like in Quest for Infamy we had sort of different regions in the game. I know you wouldn't understand this, Fred, because you don't.
Yeah,
you didn't.
I'm sorry for being a bit out of the loop because I was looking at an analytics result, and I think I'm finally able to answer your question from before. Partly because we have, it appears we have the game hosted externally, on external mirrors. But what I'm seeing is that we have had in total 18,084 visits to the download page. This out of, 41,622 page views in total, or website views in total, sorry.
But a visit to the download page is not even a guaranteed download. I've been to that page a number of times, and I know I only count as one visitor, but still.
No, that's very true, but it's still, it's still the best metric I've got. Now, something very interesting is that as far as I know, we mirror your Space Quest 2 remake. Because even if we were pissed at each other, that's nice.
Are you really? I mean, come on.
And I think what I'm seeing
we weren't really.
is that there are two links here. There's like a kind of query. It's got a parameter, download equals full. That has 71 downloads. And
one person just deleted his copy.
And the direct link to the executable installer file is 1,610. So you actually have more than 3,000 downloads from our side, which kind of adds to it. But yeah, it's not that impressive compared to the numbers you threw around earlier. That's 18,084 is what you. That's the number of inquiries you get about your Space Quest 3 remake a month.
Oh, well, there is that. I understand. Look, I am not someone to bag remakes. I did 2 of them. 3 technically, because Space Quest 2 does have Troll's Tale inside it, which is a Sierra remake, even though, some people didn't pick that one up. But
Not a tale about me. I mean, the actual Troll's Tale.
Yeah, Troll's Tale, the Halo game.
Most people don't even know.
Quest 1.
Yeah, exactly. Most people don't even know about that game unless your name is Anatoly.
It's a mini game in the game, right?
Yeah. It's well, the plan was to do all of those old high-res adventures. Like Ulysses and the Golden Fleece and Wizard and the Princess and all those old shitty, really crappy Sierras from pre-King's Quest, and do them all as arcade machines on the holodeck in that. Holographic projection room.
That would have taken ages.
Yeah, but I thought fuck it after Troll's Tale. So, anyway, a bit of trivia on Space Quest 2.
Yeah,
I loved doing those remakes, but there's you can't. We also did that when we were uni students. I was working. I don't think I was at uni or at college for the American listeners. University, it's called everywhere else in the world. I wasn't at uni or anything, but the Steve, I think it had dialysis. He was on dialysis, and he maybe not even had his first kidney transplant then, so he was quite cooked, but he was at home all the time and that. And all our artists and everything are pretty much were exclusively at college. So, they're people with a lot of spare time. Whereas, I'm 39 with 2 kids and my wife about to drop a third one. And I hope she never hears me you describe it like that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
She wouldn't have listened this far. She can hear me talk without listening to a podcast, dribble shit all day. And people like, some of our artists, we're all pretty much married. Steve's married with a kid now, and,
There are responsibilities. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Steve is married to an internet meme.
To an internet meme, yeah. Steve is an internet meme.
You've got different responsibilities when you get older. I mean, either you find a job that pays and you have rent and you have insurance and you have all of this nonsense that just isn't on your radar when you're at university. I mean, I thought being at university was hard enough as it was, and then you get out into the real world and figure out that no one really gives a shit unless you have a job, house, mortgage, whatever the fuck.
That's why I went back to university.
Yeah, me too, actually, because I all the time I've been making these games, I've been studying full time as well. So,
but there's another issue other than just you've got other priorities in your life. It's just as you get older, things change as well. I mean, one of the reasons why you do these remakes when you're in high school or in college is because you're playing, you're learning how to do things, you're constantly taking in information, and by the time you reach your late 20s, mid 30s, you want to actually use those skills or whatever else you've done in your life to do something. And that's not necessarily a free fan remake.
And historically, it was also a very different time. At the time we both did our respective nostalgia-laden efforts. Because when we started work on Bohol Strikes Back, and I'm guessing you guys started work on the Space Quest 2 remake a couple of years after that. I remember you saying 6 years or something to that effect. People were still kind of rallying together to see a proper Space Quest 7. Whether it was the Sierra Space Quest 7 that got cancelled eventually and the company folded didn't matter that much, or whether it was Colin Davis fan effort. But there was still that kind of rallying together atmosphere, and that was gone at the end of it. I mean, we did get the Kickstarter bubble briefly, but it seems to have whittled down a little bit as well now.
There's another interesting point to that, which is that the era in which they released, which was all the 3 big Space Quest games came out in early 2012. And the Kickstarter bubble happened around 2011, 2012. Before that, adventure games were considered mostly dead, and they were mostly in the hands of indie and amateur developers such as Eugens, which you were at the time. Don't get me wrong, amateur is not a cuss word or anything.
I'm still an amateur, trust me.
But you did have a business card, I believe. Anyway, no, the point is that at this point, the rallying together was not just confined to the Space Quest department. It was like adventure games in full. All of a sudden, Double Fine comes out in 2011, I think, and says, right, we're going to make an adventure game like the old LucasArts ones, and everyone throws every savings they had at them. And all of a sudden,
I think it was 2012 actually. I remember we became friends. We knew of each other obviously, but we became friends in late 2011 because we wanted you to beta test our game as the Space Quest historian. How sweet! But yeah, I get what you're saying though. What happened to us on a small scale happened out in the big world as well.
Yeah. And so at that point, people were clamoring for just about any decent adventure game to play, and once we get 5 years into the future, the excitement has kind of started waning a bit, and now when you're looking at people who are releasing story-driven games or adventure games, it's still the niche market. It's not. I mean, I suppose there was kind of the hope that back in 2012 that adventure games would reclaim their glorious past. This very naive hope that somehow they would rule the world again.
There was also the hope that some of the games would have released at this point. And,
there was that too.
What we got was a broken game from Double Fine. And another fucking Sierra remake, which had already been remade. So it was the second remake of a game and a remake of a remake.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. It's not like the result of that revival, at least in terms of the high-profile kickstarted companies. It didn't exactly go brilliantly. I mean, if those games had released and done well, and then sort of the knock-on effect of that was that right now they were working on their sequels to those games that they hoped were going to do well, we might be in a different situation. So I suppose the question to sort of throw back to Shawn is, what has happened with other companies, do you think, affected the credibility or the desirability of the sort of the industry as a whole?
Just deciding right now whether to answer that truthfully or not. To be perfectly honest. And you know what? Fuck it, I'm going to.
We can always mask your voice.
16 years ago, back in it's obviously early 2000s when me and Steve got together with Infamous Adventures, because we released King's Quest 3 in 2006. So what Trolls was saying is correct, but I think there's a bubble before that as well. Thanks very largely to Sierra, AGDI, and their King's Quest 1 and King's Quest 2 remakes.
I remember those. And I hadn't really thought of that connection before, but they really sparked the interest of making remakes that look like they
put adventure game studios on the map.
Yeah, they did.
And their remakes were very, very highly acclaimed. And you look back at their first versions of those games, and they're pretty strung together with string and sticky tape now. But they've released commercial games as well. But so there's that bubble there, and those remakes, from what I understand, King's Quest 1 downloaded in the millions. It was not a failure by any stretch of the imagination. I've heard Chris Warren, who's one of the AGDI guys, either tell me or I've seen him say it somewhere, that the Sierra actually had a spike in King's Quest 8 Mask of Eternity sales, which was still relatively new when they did their King's Quest 1 remake, when the King's Quest 1 remake came out.
And it's not as if the game deserved a spike.
Yeah, exactly. I can now see where the decline started. You see a fan remake and you go, wow, that's pretty good. Let's go back to the source. And they go, fuck this noise.
It's brown.
It's probably that. Look, okay, so in my opinion, between AGDI particularly, out stuff with our fan remakes to a lesser extent, and probably Phoenix with Silver Lining, it kept at least the Sierra side of adventure games alive for a decade.
Phoenix was actually interesting because I remember they got a cease and desist order and had to change their name. We became very aware of that because around the same time Space Quest 7 folded, so we went, shit, we better go from Space Quest Vohall Strikes Back to just Vohall Strikes Back, and we'll, have the Space Quest name in the game itself, but we won't write it anywhere. And that seems to have kind of helped. Either that or Activision just haven't noticed our game either.
And actually, just to butt in, because now I'm getting on the fret train here, just to butt in 2006 was also when Dave Gilbert first released Blackwell Legacy. And before that, he'd been pretty active on the AGS, in the AGS community and such. Yeah. So that I'm on you with the first and second bubble kind of thing. But please carry on, sir.
As I said, though, Gilbert is a Dave and Wadget is a complete exception to any of these things I'm saying, because he's above it all. I love the guy and I love his games. So, so I really believe those three groups, and probably a lot of others. There was a lot of fan remakes that started that never went anywhere. I mean, you go even to Hero 6, if anyone remembers that, going back 1,000 years.
Well, I mean, the ultimate irony is that people have been trying to remake Space Quest 3 forever, and none have been able to. And I mean, you guys did have something going, which, as far as I understand, started out as a Space Quest 2 remake Easter egg. And I hear what you got together is actually pretty good. I mainly hear Steve talking about it and not seeing the game, because that's how the video trolls went.
That's fair enough.
But yeah, people have been trying to remake some of these games for ages.
King's Quest 4 as well. I would say King's Quest 4 even more than Space Quest 3. Particularly after King's Quest 1, 2, 3 were remade, and then 5 and 6 are sitting there. There's a big nerd boner for King's Quest 4.
And I mean, people seem to be, and I'll admit, I wanted to see this happen as well. People wanted to see the whole sequence of games done in that 1991 style, so you could, pick up one and play through that, and then pick up the other, and there wouldn't be any discernible difference. You'd be in the same universe.
Yep, that's great. I agree. I don't have a problem with that.
And you would have
that's why we did ours.
And you would have the same feeling, because we talked about as well. It's about recreating. It's about recreating that same comfort zone, so to speak.
I wonder if we'll ever get to Shawn's point.
No,
probably not. Haven't spoken to me much, have you? I don't get to my point very quickly.
I want to.
We just keep interrupting the poor dude, which is okay. That's what we do on the show.
That's all right. Okay, I believe POS, AGDI, and IA at the time were the reason that Sierra Games lived for that 10 years, of that black 10 years when the rights were held by fuck knows who, and 6 or 7, quite a few different companies that were basically just holding companies until Activision got hold of them. Yep. At least Activision is a games company, regardless of the new King's Quest. But I then think, to answer the original question, we have the situation where Double Fine has gone gangbusters out the gate. It's raised, multi-millions of dollars. By Schaefer was always in the industry. That's the big difference here. Then, before you go to all of the other Sierra alum who then jumped onto the Kickstarter bandwagon. Quite frankly, I think they were riding on the coattails of 10 years of fans keeping the genre alive and cashed in when it was suddenly profitable.
I don't think that's.
I don't think that's all of it. But I think there's a certain amount of that in there, and I don't think it's probably all of them or all of the projects or whatever, but I certainly think it's part of it, because you look at a lot of those designers had never touched a game since Sierra folded until they, till they jump back in it. So to be perfectly honest, I'm probably a bit bitter about that, because I think, quite frankly, some of these Kickstarters have raised so much fucking money, still not delivered a game 4 and 5 years later. I could have made 6 fucking games and released them over, with the sort of money that they raised. Some of them have gone back twice, for fuck's sake. It makes no sense to me that people throw good money after bad, or good money after good, whatever, whichever way they want to look at it.
Well, the fact that what the hell is it called? Hero U, the game from Laurie and Corey Cole, went back for more money really surprises me, because around the same time, plus minus, Agustin Cortes, who is doing Asylum with his company Senscape, tried to get an H.P. Lovecraft game based on the case of Charles Dexter Ward, and they could not do it. It tanked. And meanwhile, you got these fucking veterans still, I say with all respect, because I love these people, I love interacting with them. But I get what you're saying. It can come off as a little unfair that you're essentially selling your goods solely on the basis on your good reputation and not based on what you've produced within the last decade.
Well, if I can offer a little perspective, just to the reason why there was a bandwagon in the first place was that up until Double Fine sort of breached the gate was that crowdfunding was invented. That's one thing, and the other one. The other one is that up until that point, you needed a publisher to publish a game. Going through the Steam route and through the GOG route, at that point it was good old games and Steam wouldn't touch it, and you needed a publisher to get something out there. Now we've got you can self-release a game and you can actually get it into the hands of people, and you don't need to convince some bespectacled shirt-wearing fuck who sits in an office and smokes cigar all day that adventure games are profitable. The people spoke, and these old designers had basically given up. They'd been convinced by the press, by the players, by the fucking CEOs that adventure games were not viable. They were dead. They were buried. Never ever do that again. And all of a sudden, they were proven wrong. So now they go, okay, now we can finally do it again.
Were they proven wrong?
Well, the fucking CEOs.
Yeah, but I mean, Shawn made an interesting point when he was talking, where he said that I could have released 6 games in that time. Well, Shawn probably could, because Shawn has actually run or co-run a studio. Most of the people that were involved in the Kickstarter campaigns were not people that had run studios or run companies. They were the designers, the artists, the writers. Yeah, exactly. And actually, I think they really underestimated actually how, and don't actually may have learnt now, but they didn't at the time really know how to put together a game.
I don't want to spring to his defense, but I do think it's pretty interesting that the one game from that wave of Kickstarters that released was actually headed by a guy who was the executive. He was also a fucking dick, but who was working with Al Lowe and Josh Mandel, who could concentrate on being, I'm not going to mention his name because he doesn't deserve it, but they could focus on the game making, which is what they knew, and this fucking cunt of a character could focus on the business side of things.
And also
libel alert. Libel alert. Libel alert. Libel alert. Libel alert.
It's actually
wow.
I think we might have to edit that one out to avoid a loss.
Yeah, I was going to say that might be a little libel in that one. Don't get me wrong with what I said about other designers. I would have done the same thing in their situation. Absolutely jumped on the bandwagon. And Troll's probably made a good point that I haven't really thought of. They have probably been around to all of the, all of the suits looking for the funding to make games that they can't you know.
Yeah, but I have
Because
another
they-
interruption here, which I think is pretty interesting. And
Really?
I don't mean to insult him because he's actually a great friend, and I hope he's well wherever he is. But I distinctly recall that just before the Kickstarter launch, I was talking to Trolls, and Trolls mentioned that he was talking with the two guys of Andromeda. I mean, they weren't such at the time. There was kind of the idea forming in the back of my head, certainly, that they were reforming, but it hadn't been confirmed.
Yeah,
And
I was feeling it.
I sought out Scott Murphy on Twitter, and I distinctly remember that his profile text in those days went something along the lines of, designed a bunch of Space Quest adventure games back in the day. Sorry they sucked. You know, and Scott has that sense of humor, but very quickly, once they got together, that wording changed slightly to omit the last part of this of the last sentence.
I love Scott. He's awesome.
So, you know, I'm not sure all of them had been around to studios. I'm not convinced.
Well,
Okay,
no,
fair enough.
I didn't say they'd been around two studios. I meant back when they were employed at game studios. I mean, the adventure game heyday sort of ended in the late 90s when there still were studios around. I mean, as far as Sierra goes, we both know that Sierra completely and utterly tanked at the very tail end of the 90s, maybe early 2000s. It wasn't even a company at that point. But other game companies like LucasArts, for instance, were still around, but they, you know, started shifting away from adventure games into developing other games. Blizzard famously,
Star Wars games.
Yeah, Star Wars games primarily. Blizzard famously put Warcraft Adventures into production and then canceled it right at the 90% completed mark because they found out that, well, adventure games aren't really selling. We should probably stop doing this. Simon the Sorcerer wanted to make a 2D classic point-and-click third installment, and they were told, well, okay, we'll let you do this because this is Britain after all,
Well,
but you have to make it 3D.
I know.
Wait,
all that,
what?
But I mean, part of the story is that we were so much in love with the idea of the Sierra alum returning because they'd been out of games for that long. You know, conversely, someone like Chris Jones, who did Tesla Effect, was in games all along. He was working at Big Finish, and they were doing different games certainly, but they were doing games.
And it's interesting. Chris Jones is an interesting example because not only was he a game designer and the actor in the Tex Murphy games, but he was also the financial director of Access for all of its
Prophecies aren't in my job description, okay? I'm just a humble PI trying to save the world as we know it.
He was also that.
Yeah, exactly. Famously quoted as, I looked at the books and I saw that I could afford myself as the lead actor. So he also has a business side to it. And it's interesting that Tesla Effect actually did ship and did moderately well, I suppose. So, yeah, there's that.
I guess getting back to the original question, yes, I think the Kickstarters have hurt us. I think the unreleased ones hurt. I think big time. I think there's still a number. I couldn't tell you how many. I've, to be perfectly honest, lost a lot of interest in following a lot of the updates nowadays because it's been so long. That still have not released. And at some point, fans are just going to go, fuck it, don't care. I'm kind of a bit that, well, I'm a fan and I feel that way, you know. And I love games. I love new games. So, you know, I also think fans are going to be disappointed when they get, and probably particularly in the case of Space Venture and Hero U, they're not getting Quest for Glory and Space Quest. They're not getting Space Quest 7, they're not getting Quest for Glory 5, 6.
No, they're getting spiritual successes. Or
they're getting spiritual successes, and maybe that'll be enough, and I really, really hope it is.
But you know,
I think
with your words in mind about your retro games not selling, one could fear that people don't want spiritual successes. They want Space Quest 3, VGA, or what fuck have you, or Space Quest 7.
I think they do, but isn't that the problem? The four of us in this conversation are probably a bit weird in that actually I don't want Space Quest 7. I want something that is sort of, in that sort of ballpark. Obviously, in the sense that Friends and Cheers were both sitcoms, but I didn't want. You don't want exactly the same thing for 40, 50 years. You want something to be different. You want different characters and different ways of doing things.
Wait, then that's an interesting point, because we were way back at the start. We were talking about conservatism in adventure games from adventure gamers, and now Gareth is saying that he wants something that has the same whiff, but is not the same kebab that he had last night.
Yes.
And I would argue probably that, at least if you look to the Sierra community, I'm not sure if this applies to the general adventure gaming community, but certainly the Sierra community, and this is something Fred harps about a lot, is that, and we also mentioned this at the start, they're a very conservative bunch. And if you give them something that doesn't quite smell right, I mean, even going as far back as Space Quest 6, you've got Roger basically spending more than half of the game in space, but they look at the back of the box and go, I'm going to traipse around. What? A human body? Fuck this. That's not even Space Quest. And it's sold like hell.
I think it's a factor that when Sierra had kind of, hit their apex, they'd gone as far as they could go, that's when they tanked. Whereas LucasArts kept evolving for a couple of years. I mean, the Monkey Island series went different places after Monkey Island 2. You got Curse of Monkey Island, which was like, the look of it was Space Quest 6 on steroids. It had this colorful, cartoony, almost Disney-ish look. And then they went over to 3D with Escape from Monkey Island and Grim Fandango and didn't do brilliantly, but they did better than Gabriel Knight 3, which was the last Sierra adventure game, of course. So I think LucasArts fans are less conservative as a result.
Mm-hmm.
They got just a little bit of extra mile down the road.
Yeah,
I think LucasArts had the advantage of building upon. They were able to look at the mistakes that Sierra, or what they perceived the mistakes Sierra had made, and not do them. So they could come in at step 6 in the process, whereas Sierra had to develop steps 1 through 5 first.
Mm-hmm.
They also had George Lucas's money, of course.
They had Lucas's money and, that never-ending pit of Star Wars money, Run out of money.
Oh, God. I didn't know he could do that voice.
There's absolutely no need for that, Fred.
Oh, really?
If I didn't have a cold, I could actually I can do a great Wookiee, but it wouldn't sound good right now.
No. But it's an interesting. Let's talk about adventure gamers as a whole, because I think it's very interesting that you can still sell an adventure game today. I mean, a game like Life is Strange has sold very well.
Well, you're saying you, which I think is a bit of a generalization in the context of this conversation. Someone can sell adventure games.
Well, I'm sorry.
I took it as a royal you.
That's exactly what I meant. You can sell a game that is ostensibly an adventure game, but if you market it as an adventure game, people immediately start thinking nostalgia, and then they look towards a certain part of the market. Whereas if you do the Stanley Parable, or you do Life is Strange, or you do Gone Home, you're releasing
Firewatch.
Yeah, Firewatch, exactly. You're aiming for.
Everyone raved about that game. I thought that was the most boring thing I've ever played in my life.
I didn't play
anyway.
But then you're marketing a game to a different set of people, like the big market thing, and then you have people like Telltale who kind of carved their own niche in by doing licensed games. So even people who don't really give a shit about adventure games or even games in general, they're still gonna play fucking Game of Thrones or Jurassic Park, the adventure game.
The interactive cutscene, which is what it is.
Yeah, but still, that carries a different demographic with it. But if you sit down and market a game exclusively to adventure gamers, and you go, this is not a throwback, but this will make your bleeding adventure game hearts pump again, or something like that. You've already sort of nailed a coffin in that by simply calling it an adventure game. It has that nostalgic tinge to it, no matter how many voxels or pixels or vectors you throw at it.
We tried 2 different marketing campaigns with, surprisingly, we actually did try to market our 2 games. And the first one we market it as a nostalgic throwback, and I don't know if it says something about it, but it did sell better. The second game we sold on the Wadget principle of modern, just a story game, basically. Mm-hmm. I don't think I used the word adventure. I certainly did not. I had a list of banned words that I talked about it with our PR company that we employed for that game, who did a fantastic job, got us in a lot of press for that. But we didn't use words like, we didn't use point and click, because I think that's got the same sound as adventure game. I know Adventure game wasn't on there, but I didn't use it. But we didn't use point and click. We didn't use retro. We didn't use pixel. Quite a few words like that we did not use in the marketing of that game.
And that was all a conscious decision.
That was a absolutely conscious decision on my part. I pretty much did most of that game myself, which is fine because Steve did most of Quest for Infamy. But sucks to be him. That was much harder. But but yeah, no, with the marketing, that was absolutely a conscious decision because honestly, I saw it worked for Wadget. They don't promote their games as pixel graphic games or retro. Dave would never use. You would never see the word retro.
No, in fact, he'll get quite upset if you start calling his games retro.
He'll get annoyed if you use the word retro. Yeah, or we didn't compare it to older games, but you read the reviews, and the good reviews all say it was like playing a King's Quest game in 1992, and you read the bad reviews, and they're like, this is an unmitigated pile of shit, and why would anyone want to play this? There's no middle-of-the-ground reviews for either of our games. They're all excellent or total shit. So,
and the ones that are excellent, they all tell you that, this is such a delightful throwback to the
days of
delightful throw-up.
Yeah, well, I mean, Order of Thorn is a delightful throw-up. I mean, Order of Thorn was written partly. People have told me, I have been told that we decided to do a King's Questy type game because of the new King's Quest by Odd Gentleman. Completely not true. They had not announced that game. Order of the Thorn started off as Kingdom of Sorrow. I don't know if you remember, we announced that as when we were doing fan remakes. King's Quest Kingdom of Sorrow is one of the shitty novels they did in the mid-90s. And we made a game out of it. We never finished it, but I used all the assets and basically wrote a new story around it. And I wrote a King's Quest game I wrote it also using modern sensibilities. There is, modern rules for adventure games, the LucasArts rules basically. There are no deaths. There's no dying. There's no unwinnable situations. There are multiple solutions to a lot of the puzzles, to the major puzzles. There is 2 alternate endings. There's 2 different endings in that game. All the things I wrote a list of all the things that people complained about in Quest for Infamy, as in the negative reviews for Quest for Infamy, and I said, well, we will do that differently in this game. Fucking hotspot labels, when you hover over a hotspot and it tells you this is a rock, because you can't see the fucking rock on the screen. So,
and I suppose the only mistake that you made was to keep the icon bar, which immediately labels it as a Sierra throwback.
But it's not an icon bar. That is an inventory bar.
That's actually true.
It is just an inventory bar. Okay,
that's
there is
right. It's actually that's true. It's actually a left-right. I'm sorry, and I'm actually playing this game right now over my YouTube channel. What the hell?
You're apparently not doing it well.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Richard, why can I not? Why is the walk icon a piece of cheese? Why can I not walk anywhere?
You're absolutely right, and I was wrong. Oh, that sample again. I've missed that.
That is, and honestly, I completely duplicated the Wadget Eye interface.
Mm-hmm.
It is complete duplication of Wadget Eye's interface down to the way he does left and right clicks.
Yeah.
To make it simpler for people. I mean, there's no talk or touch icons. They're all combined. It's just an interact on, I don't remember, is it left or right click, but whatever.
Yeah, that's
if you
left,
can't
right.
walk there, you can interact with it.
But I'm guessing that's also partly because you could see it had worked out for Dave to streamline the interface to that extent. And
let's wait a minute.
And you might have thought that's why, it's because he's refined it even more.
No, wait. Let's just put that in historical context. Dave did not come up with that interface.
No, it's an LA interface.
Revolution Software did.
I'm certainly not saying he is.
That interface was invented back in 1994 with Beneath the Steel Sky.
He's succeeding with it today, whereas Broken Sword 5 is kind of getting lukewarm reviews, and Beneath the Steel Sky 2 doesn't seem to be happening. So, who's doing better? That was my only inference.
Well, still, I mean, streamlining the interface, and I'm sorry, I got those mixed up. But streamlining the interface is one thing. It's trying to make it more easy for the player to concentrate on the story rather than what kind of icon they're supposed to use to solve a puzzle.
Or which word triggers the parser to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you
struggle with that? Actually, just to go off onto a tangent here, just slightly.
Go ahead.
You guys being obviously non-Americans like myself, did you guys have trouble with the fucking parsers from Sierra Games? Just trying to work out the American word for something?
Trolls has a cutesy anecdote here.
Has I really?
Cutesy. Has I really? Has I really? Cutesy childhood anecdote.
Oh, it's the one where my friend and I printed out the walkthrough for Space Quest 2 and beat it by just typing off what it said on the page because we didn't really speak English.
It's what preceded that. It's the cutscene in the beginning of the game. What you did in response to it.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. That one is cutesy. Yeah, when the narrator at the start of Space Quest 2 goes, "That's the third broom you've lost this week. Wait till your boss finds out." And I thought they meant literally, so I just stood there and waited.
Yeah, I mean, Australian and English are, I think, very similar, aren't they, Shawn? So yes, I think our idioms are just not the same as what the Americans use at all.
I got stuck in Space Quest 1. I tried to do a playthrough of Space Quest 1 just a little while ago to see if it was still good, basically. And the original AGI version. And I got to the bit where I had to look in the cupboard to get the bloody suit or the gas mask or whatever it is, right at the beginning. I couldn't work out the bloody word for opening the cupboard because I couldn't work out if it was the cupboard or closet or wardrobe or something like that. I don't know what word they used, but it was the American word for it.
Wow.
And yeah. That used to happen to me all the time. But, that's Americans for you. They think they're the center of the universe. So.
Right, so I guess what I'm taking away from the conversation that we've just had, one of the main things I'm taking away from this is that there is a market for adventure games and certainly story-based games, but as long as you don't market them as adventure games or anything that smells nostalgic, as long as you don't do pixel art, and again, I know that Dave Gilbert is a major exception to this rule, but as long as you do that, you're not just targeting the bleeding heart nostalgics who may or may not shell out full asking price for an adventure game. And I think another thing is also because, namely, a lot of the adventure games that are coming out have this throwback style to them. Either they're pixel art or they're node based, like Agustin Cordes's games are. All of this stuff. There's a lot of backwards technology about them in the sense that I think the reason why Tesla Effect did all right, and certainly why the Data Lake games do very well, even though most of them are pretty shit, is because they look pretty and they look modern. And if you keep using quote-unquote outdated technology to present your games, then you are only appealing to a certain demographic of an already, a market for story-based games.
Absolutely agree.
So, are you guys in on that one?
I am, certainly. I mean, I've been saying this on this show for ages. I think the one example which I really like, which uses sort of outdated technology, is The Last Door, because it works very well in that because it's a horror game, and everything horror always works better when you peel into the subconscious, the stuff you can't see. And that's exactly how the look of the game is. You can't see anyone's faces, that the Hitchcock effect, exactly. And you have a very strong oral side to it,
But again,
where you don't have visuals.
But just on the basic.
But it's also, if I may, sorry.
Oh yeah,
it's also a look that would never have existed. It's not the AGI look, it's not the VGA look. It's somewhere in between. It's lower res than AGI with an outrageously beautiful palette of colors. So it's something that never existed, which you can't say about Space Quest 2 or King's Quest 3 or King's Quest 1 Plus or 2 Plus or whatever they're all called.
But I think it's also the superficiality of, you just want a game that looks good. I mean, one bit of shit that we got for Serena was, why are my feet nailed to the floor? And I know that Augustin is trying to circumvent this by stating his philosophy straight up. You're not supposed to run around the corridors of my asylum. You're supposed to take your time and look at them. And 2, he moved the engine to Unity, where he can do particle effects and smoothness, and he's adding Oculus Rift support and all this jazz. So I think he's got a number on that one. But basically, I think if you're not Dave Gilbert and you're putting out a game that looks like it was done in 1993, you're only appealing to a very, very small market. Shawn, what do you think about that?
I both agree and disagree. I think I agree in the respect that I think you're limiting your market, but up until we released... No, actually, I'll just agree. Up until we released these 2 games, I was under the impression that the market... And I really do have to differentiate between the Sierra market and the LucasArts market, because in the adventure game community, that is still in that... I don't care what people say, that's still a divide and it still exists. The Sierra side of things, I genuinely don't believe are interested in new games. I believe they're interested in nostalgia, by and large. And in that respect, I don't think they're going to buy the game, whether it's 2D, 3D, or whatever, as evidenced by Jane Jensen's Mobius. I don't believe that sold overwhelmingly brilliant numbers.
Ooh,
and
good
that
point.
is the queen of adventure games, supposedly.
Yeah, Pinkerton Road have closed, and Phoenix have downscaled overall, so that's another failed endeavor. They had 2 games, Mobius and a remake, and no, I don't. I think you're right. None of those sold very well.
That's actually pretty true. That's actually true, and those are very Sierra marketed games. They were appealing to the Sierra market. So basically, Sierra are a bunch of conservative cunts, or Sierra fans are.
Well, we've sorted it. We all know what Shawn needs to do now. He needs to make the remake of Quest for Infamy. Everybody will buy that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
just do an AGI remake and you'll be fine.
A D-make.
A D-make. Oh, wow. Yeah. The problem is though, you go to 3D, and Phoenix would have come up against this with their games. You go to 3D and your costs escalate through the roof. Mm-hmm. The reason we stay with 2D is because, okay, yes, A, we like it, and that's the reason that we do tell people, because it's true. But B, it's a fraction of the cost to do 2D. Whether it be pixel art or not, I will say that we are not using retro technology when it comes to our 2D games.
Oh, definitely not. That's just the perception that people get.
Yes, correct. Yeah, absolutely. And perception is king. What people perceive is their reality. So, but they're 32-bit color backgrounds in those games. They're not 256 color backgrounds like Sierra did. So there is a marketable difference. And we do, we use particle effects generators and shit like that for fire and water and all that sort of stuff. So, there is modern technology used. So it is mostly a design choice.
Yeah.
But I guess at the end of the day, the reality that we've had to come to the realization about is that if it is not, I just had a bit of a revelation then. What The Last Door, which I believe was fairly successful, and Wadjidai's games have in common is an overall theme of being a darker game, as in, do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, more
the
like
tone of the games.
It's actually,
Adult
post-apocalyptic, or
I think Fran Bow was somewhat successful as well, and you can't accuse that of being too retro. I mean, it is on the resolution side. Fran Bow is only like, it's very limited. It's widescreen as far as I remember. I played all the way through it, but it's still somewhat limited in its resolution. But that was successful as well because it was dark, and maybe that's also. Maybe we are neglecting the fact, Trolls mentioned it at one point, and you mentioned it as well with the university talk. People are growing up, and they may not realize it, but they may want different stories, darker stories.
But let me just point that around to the Daedalic games again, which again I have to stress the Ponia games are absolute fucking garbage, but they look phenomenally pretty. And I think that has a lot to do with attracting new coming players who look at the graphics, the screenshots first, and go, my God, this looks amazing. And then they play it and realize it's shit, but at that point you've already got their money, so fuck it.
Yeah. Well, to be cynical, yes. But, that's true. Maybe the retro look, I use the term myself. That's how hard it is to get away from it. But maybe that look doesn't appeal to enough people outside the limited community to make it successful. I think you get away. I think the pixelated graphics, or the pixel graphics, or what Ben Chandler does. The backgrounds and the way he draws them and that, because they use a lot of dark colours.
Exactly. He's got a certain
maybe
style
that works better. Yeah. Maybe that style just works better than happy, cheery games, regardless of whether people say they want them or not. The bottom line is what sell and what don't.
Yeah, and that's a zeitgeist thing.
I mean, looking at that, happier, cheerier games are the ones that sell the best. I mean, it was. I realize we've at this point. Decided that it was a Kickstarter bubble, and a bubble always bursts. But everyone knew that Tim Schafer wasn't going to do a horror game. So I guess the champion in all of this, its quality disregardless, is a Broken Age, which I called a broken game earlier. But that's a pretty lighthearted game. In fact, what's interesting is that most Sierra fans that I've talked to seem to, the diehards who rarely play LucasArts games if ever, they seem to dislike these humorful, colorful games. In fact, I remember one specific quote from a friend of ours, bless him by all means, Andrew Branscombe, who in one of these Sierra Facebook groups went. We were talking about all kinds of games, and he goes, that's just like LucasArts games with juvenile humor and no deaths. Holy fucking shit, that is some generalization you're making.
Well, I guess we could speculate about that till the cows come home. I know Shawn has a number of other topics that he wants to get into.
The cows come home. I thought we were going to do a summarization, but it turned into anything.
Yeah, it never turns into a quick sum up point. It's just bullet point after bullet point with us.
Okay, fuck the sum up. Where do you want to go, Shawn?
Well, let's talk about piracy.
Yes.
Arr.
Piracy is a big issue in this community that other developers, not all of them, but some, other developers, fans particularly, have their heads so far up there in the sand about.
You can swear.
It is unbelievable. I don't have any problem swearing.
I know.
It boggles my mind that people think that it doesn't affect their sales, or that the effect doesn't matter. I'll tell you my history. I was a massive pirater of electronic anything.
Electronic forms
music,
of entertainment.
Any form of entertainment, you know, not just the porn, you know. But movies, music, everything. And we released Quest for Infamy, which, based on our trackers on the now defunct, some of the torrent sites which are no longer around, like Kick-Ass Torrents, just looking at the download numbers, have been downloaded 10, 15 times the amount that we have sold. Ouch. So I can't get my head around not thinking that is an issue. Yes, I completely understand that not every one of those people who've downloaded the game were going to buy it or were ever going to buy it. Yes, I completely understand and agree that some people download games because they're collectors and they just download everything that goes up on the torrent sites. I believe that's a smaller percentage than some people like to think it is, but how many people download everything just for the sake of having it? Who has that space?
Only ever in terms of porn with me.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough.
Why do you guys download porn? It's readily available streaming. Never mind.
I actually stream.
I think there's a third part of that, Shawn, which is also people who aren't really sure what it is they're getting into and want to play the game.
Sorry, that is not a reason. That is absolute bullshit. We released a demo. There are screenshots. There are Let's Plays on YouTube. There is plenty of space on the internet to look at our games without stealing it.
There is, but that's just for some people that's not an option. They would like to play it first.
Those people are thieving cunts and owe me money.
There you go. I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying that there's clearly a percentage of people out there who wants to get the full game down so that they don't hit that brick wall and go, well, now you have to buy our game to play the rest of it. They want to play the game, see if it's good, and then they will support the game. I don't agree that that's right or anything. I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm just saying that's also a demographic.
Yeah, I think. You're right, but I don't accept that it's a legitimate.
Me neither.
And I used to accept that as a legitimate reason. I really don't. When we went out of our way. Firstly, I think just on a side note, I'm not a huge fan of full Let's Plays of games, adventure games in particular. Anyway, particularly new ones, because as a story-driven game, you're pretty much just showing people the final chapter of the book. And once you've seen it, do you really want to go then and play it? I don't know. That's not to say that I would ever stop people putting Let's Plays of our games up, but it's just a thought that niggles at the back of my mind. But
well, you did put two endings in Order of the Thorn, and I'm only going to play through one of the endings. So I will make sure to at the end of my Let's Play to say there's also an alternate ending. I'm not going to go look for that. You can buy the game and play it for yourself.
Yep.
Let's shake on that.
Agreed. And that's fine. Look, I've given keys out, free copies of the game out to people too.
Actually. Interestingly, you gave me a free copy of Quest for Infamy, the game that Steve did, and I bought Order of the Thorn with my own money.
It was only $10, sure. Well, I could tokenistically offer you a free one now if you really want.
No, I'm good.
I actually feel like I feel like buying it, but if I don't feel like buying it after this sales pitch, then would I ever?
Just carry on, Shawn. Pirates. What up?
that's the problem with piracy. And the other thing that people say that I think is bullshit is it's free advertising. I think that's bullshit.
Oh, that one is complete and utter bullshit. That's true.
It is, and I hate to use the word entitlement because it drives me insane when people use it. But
in a sociological sense, it is entitlement if that's the way you want to go down.
Yes, exactly what I was trying to work out a way to say that without sounding like an ass.
This is why Gareth has a doctorate.
Nice. I just don't. Piracy is a huge problem, and I think I don't know if there are solutions to the problem. I don't think there really are right now, to any great extent, But
it's the economy of scale as well, Shawn. I mean, if somebody takes 10% off, I don't know, an EA Sports title, then yeah, EA Sports maybe misses out on a couple of $1 million, but they're still going to make a massive profit. You take 10% away from you, and you've already said, you're already not making a profit. You're taking away, meals at that point.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
At 10%, you're taking away meals. At 20%, you have to euthanize a child.
Absolutely. Is this another one of those bits that you're going to cut? Or?
I think that one flies because no sexual assault was implied.
I think though piracy comes down to the fact that I don't think, and this is not just adventure games, I don't think in our modern world digital media has any value to the vast majority of people. I think this is true of games and music and TV shows and everything like that. I've got a lot of friends in the music industry, a lot of live music, of course, but they can't. People will not buy their music.
No, exactly.
And
if you're in a band, the only way you're supporting yourself is by playing shows and selling merchandise. You're not. I mean, most people go on streaming sites now to play their music, and they get like a fraction of what they would from an album sale.
That was also kind of bubbled because I was extremely excited back when Trent Reznor announced that he was going independent and he was giving away music. Down the road, a few years later, he's signed with Columbia and he's selling his stuff again. It did not work. He realized he was just preaching to the choir, so he was still selling. He was just selling to that same old bunch of fans that had always been on the bandwagon. He wasn't making new fans. He didn't have the budget for making new fans.
Nobody has the budget. Paul McCartney or the Rolling Stones don't have the budget to make new fans in that way, I don't think. You can give a free concert in Central Park, that's fine, and have 300,000 people show up to it. You can't give away, 12, 18 months, 2 years of your life making an album, or the same with a computer game, and expect to continue to make those products freely available. And that is one of the problems that we've got. I don't think people value adventure games. I mean, we talked about this right at the beginning. I don't think people value adventure games intrinsically because they don't pay for them. The amount of people when I talk numbers, we have sold about 1,000 copies roughly on Steam of between both major platforms, but on Steam we've got probably, I think, let me just look, there you go, about 12,000 people sitting in their wish list for Order of the Thorn. How can a $10 how can a $10 game be in that many people's wish list? I mean, I had a coffee with a friend of mine today at McDonald's, and I bought his coffee and my coffee and a couple of bits of cake, which is like $14. It's $14. So I don't understand, for that, 10 minutes of enjoyment that I got out of that, how people can't equate that same $10 on 5 hours of a game.
Go for a country that has a higher cost of living, and $10 will be that cup of coffee. I mean, it nearly fucking is here anyway.
Yeah, well, it was McDonald's, so I didn't say it was good.
But it was hot enough for them to write it on the cup.
Actually, it was in a nice ceramic mug, but there you go.
Australian McDonald's are weird.
Oh, yeah, we got this McCafe thing, which is an Aussie invention. It's a bit stupid, but there you go. They tried to cut into the cafe coffee market. Seems to be all right. They're just in a normal Macca's restaurant, so...
How do you pirate a coffee? No, sorry, go on.
So you can't. And that's why they still sell them. Well, they could probably... no, I won't go to it.
I was just joking. Please don't go down that route.
Yeah, I think we're losing focus slightly. Back to piracy, the non-seafaring kind.
Yeah, look, I don't... It doesn't make sense to me that people are waiting for a sale for a $10 game. It really doesn't. I understand some people don't have money, fine, whatever. And that's fine. I understand that. I appreciate that. I've been through periods of my life where I couldn't buy a $10 game. And I appreciate that not everyone will like the game. I mean, me and Fred have talked about this. He doesn't like fantasy games. It's probably not a game he's going to buy. I appreciate people don't buy a game just to support a genre. They buy a game because they want to play the fucking game. But to me, if it's on a wish list, they want to play the game. They just don't want to pay $10 for it. Mm-hmm. Or, and this goes into my second bucket list item, they're waiting for it to be in a bundle.
Yes.
So let me give the truth about bundles. They, by and large, are not much better than piracy. We shifted not all the bundles, and I will just say right now, Humble are not on this list. They are fantastic. But a lot of the other bundles that are around, some bundles, we shifted Quest for Infamy in a bundle, about 10,000 copies of it went. We made, I think it was about 11 cents a copy.
Oh.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Wow.
But then you look at it, okay, yes,
you can't even get a cup of regurgitated coffee for 11 cents in Denmark.
I couldn't even buy the styrofoam cup for that. And that's one that a bummer's been using to, piss in. But for the consumer, it's fantastic. And I have no drama with that. And bundles for me should be seen in exactly the same way that discounts and sales, like, Steam Summer Sale or GOG Summer Sale or whatever, they are to me the digital equivalent of what 20 years ago was the bargain bin. The game has been out a long time. The game has been out 6 months, 12 months, whatever. Its major sales life is finished, and then it gets chucked in the bargain bin for $10. Because then at that point, okay, the shops want to get rid of their excess stock and inventory, that's fine. But also for the publisher, they're getting the game out to people that then, word of mouth might enjoy it and then buy the next one for full price. But people don't buy games for full price anymore. There's no value to it because they know that sometime in the next 60 days, 90 days, it is going to be on sale or in a bundle 9 times out of 10 for, they will be able to get 12 games, 15 games for $6 or $8, flicking a bit of it to charity maybe with some of them, which will make them feel good. And,
does this mean that you've sort of put the price of your games maybe in hindsight a little bit too low?
Oh, but that was one of the criticisms of Gone Home, for instance, which was that I got 4 hours of very, very decent enjoyment out of that, but it was priced at I remember like $15, $18, something like that, and people were just going ape shit about that. So
we released Quest for Infamy, which is about we average probably 10 to 12 hours, which is a bloody long adventure game, and that was $20, and we got we got, reamed up the arse for the price of that. We released Order of the Thorn at $10, and as I've said, how many wish lists is it on? Because people know, and to anyone who's listening, if Order of the Thorn is on your wish list, it is not going in a bundle. That game will never be in a bundle. I will not, unless somebody comes along with a bundle that's going to give me at least a couple of bucks a game. It's not going in a bundle. Mm-hmm. Yes, it might get discounted. I'm sure. I think we've already put it on sale at one point. But
it's already happened. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not going to be 90 and 95% sales.
Oh no. Interesting question.
There's a disconnect between reality and a perceived. I don't even know what.
I suppose you could call it the ideological illusion that you'll always be able to work on these games fueled solely by your nostalgia and by your love for them. But that's not what the world runs on. And it's not what any company runs on. You run on your fucking profit.
Yep. We have to make enough money out of Quest for Infamy to fund Order of the Thorn. We didn't do that, which is why we had to run the next Kickstarter, which puts you further behind for the next game. Mm-hmm. Unless it sells enough. Then you've got to sell more of Order of the Thorn to make up for Quest for Infamy, to then get the money you need to get out of Order of the Thorn to then fund the next game.
I think the parallel to the music industry is very palpable here, because the way the music industry works now, unless you are a big name, I mean, most musicians have part-time jobs on the side. Like making music is a part-time job, as is making games for most people. Living full-time off game making is practically impossible for upstarters or indie developers and such.
The way I'm hearing this is it's bound to be a vicious circle for any developer as unfortunate as you are, which I guess is something that you always will be, unless you're Dave Gilbert, bless him. But it kind of sounds like you guys were into building your dream house, but you built it on a foundation of quicksand, because that's all we have.
If 5% of the people who downloaded Space Quest 2 had bought Quest for Infamy, we would have pulled a full-time wage out of it.
There you go. That's actually a pretty, if you gents agree, that's actually a pretty nice way to end this little soiree of ours.
That's a pretty depressing and convincing way to end it, yeah.
Yeah, but we need to stay realistic here, because the thing I'm taking away from this is that people's, the consumers, the expectations they have for game developers is that it doesn't take that long to play or to develop a game, and it certainly isn't worth $20 to buy a game that's low res. And all of these kind of shitty reasons for not buying in a game that has taken 18 months, 24 months of your full-time life to create. So I do agree. It's a vicious cycle, and the only way it's going to be remedied is you enlighten people of the hardships that it actually takes to make a game, or B, it becomes one of those part-time things, like being a musician in a band that's not on a major label.
I think to enlighten people, it needs to be an enlightened self-interest as well. There needs to be an upside for people, because as a consumer, the games industry the indie game industry at least, is in a fantastic place, because they're cheap or free. Look at Heroine's Quest. That came out about the same time as Quest for Infamy. I'm sure they downloaded a crap load more than we did. We were constantly compared to it, rightly so, very similar games. I've got nothing but respect for the game. I think it's a pretty good game. But intrinsically, people have the choice of $20 for Quest for Infamy, $0 for Heroine's Quest. the logic is they're going to go for the free game.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
there's no perceived value in it. Now, all of that said, and I've been very negative over the last couple of hours, is we do have some of the most absolutely amazing fans that have just backed us to the hilt, with both our Kickstarters particularly, and just the letters of encouragement that we get, and the conversations we have with people about how much it means to them and all that. And that is one of the main reasons we probably kept going as long as we did, and at least probably did a second game, because we know that there is a market out there that people do like the games, but people do love the games and love what we do. Unfortunately, not enough.
Well, yeah, and we've covered all sorts.
I feel I should have been self-critical a bit more about the games themselves and what I see as actually perceived faults in those games. But maybe that could be another show. But
we're not.
I don't want to just sound like I'm just blaming, fuck you bastards not buying my games, because there's a lot of reasons people might not like fantasy games. Fair enough. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into doing fantasy, but the first game was what it was, and the second game we did basically because we had a lot of the assets already there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can't make a sci-fi game out of King's Quest backgrounds.
Well, that's
you
a
can,
challenge.
but it's going to be dumb. I think, unless I have seriously thought about doing a parody, but I still may. I've got enough half-finished remakes sitting there. I'm just deciding should I mention some of the other half-done remakes so that Steve can be inundated with emails from people asking for them to be released.
If they've listened this far, I think you should.
I think you should do that. Poor fucking
Conquest
Steve.
of Camelot. We have got probably a third of Conquest of Camelot remade. We've got probably half of King's Quest 4. We've got Space Quest 3. Space Quest 3 is not as far developed as people seem to think it is.
Well, I still think you should release it. Maybe Activision will give you the rights. Consider that for a moment.
He's joking. Don't worry.
I know, but I still can't help biting at it.
but I mean, maybe they will lend him the rights.
Activision give a shit about the Sierra catalogue nowadays. Let's be perfectly honest about this. I think, in my opinion, just to put that out there, I don't think the Sierra experiment has been a success. And I base this on the fact that they've not released a game except a King's Quest chapter this year, pretty much. They don't really update their social media at all, and that's a big sign, that they're winding it down. I don't think the sales of King's Quest have been... I don't honestly think they've been terrible, but I don't think they've been brilliant. And when you look at the cast in that game, which is just second to none, and you look at the God knows how many millions, if not 5, 6, 7 million, I don't know, I'm just making the numbers out of my ass, but they spent some money on advertising for that game and promoting that game.
And it looks great and it's funny.
It looks great, and King Guybrush is fantastic in it, but look, that's honestly my only major criticism with it. I know a lot of people criticise it. A lot of hardcore Sierra fans have criticised it. My only criticism, I think they've made Graham way too goofy. He's Guybrush. He's not King Graham. King Graham is... as someone who has done remakes and fan games, etc., I think that you have to stay within the established parameters of that universe. Otherwise, do your own thing.
Oh, and that's what Space Quest 2 BGA did so well, in my opinion, as the so-called historian, was that it stuck to the spirit of
the
Space Quest.
Nails now.
I thought it did.
We fucking nailed Space Quest 2. say that unashamedly. I'm fairly embarrassed a bit about King's Quest 3, but Space Quest 2 I think we fucking nailed.
I think
we got that right. We got the humour right. Because we knew what Scott and Mark, but I think the humour in those earlier games was more Scott. That's the humour they get. That's the humour. Their humour is, I get that, and Steve gets that. We've got very similar humour there. It's what I would call a British humour, along the lines of the Red Dwarf.
There you go.
I don't want to say Monty Python because that's it's more slapstick, but that sort of, there's no Americans here, I can say this, intelligent humour.
Wordy humour. Yeah.
Wordy humour. It's intelligent humour. It's not American humour.
I don't get that at all. I want to see someone get slapped in the face with a pie.
Yeah.
That's a terrible accent.
American humour is very crude, fart jokes a lot of the time. And, I don't have a problem with that. I like that. But I think Space Quest is not that. One of the fan games used American humour, and it really bugged me. I hope it wasn't Fred's name, but
I think we were very European, and we've actually been told that, and maybe that's why some people don't really care for it, because it's a very European kind of Monty Python-esque humor, and it's just laced with the references from European entertainment.
Yeah, but that's what Space Quest is.
Yeah,
that is exactly what Space Quest is.
I guess, yeah.
Probably without the European references, they used a lot of, but Space Quest is laden with pop culture references. You go around the fucking junk thing in the junk ship in Space Quest 3. It's got a TIE fighter. It's got, fucking Transformers. There's a lot of shit in that that's just, Anyway, back to the point. I told you I can get off on a tangent. But the thing with... I don't think the Sierra thing has been as big a success. I can't see them doing another game after King's Quest. So are they going to give out a license to other people to do another one of the big Quest series? If they did, what would it be? They don't have Leisure Suit Larry. That's not theirs. I think Leisure Suit Larry, quite frankly, is completely dated. It's not a game that holds up content-wise. I think the other games, the other series will hold up content-wise. I don't think Larry does. As sad as that is, because I did enjoy them, but you play them in a modern context, and
Larry
I'm not a PC person.
Larry is only enjoyable by people who can view him through a historical lens.
If I did a remake of Larry, I would set it in the... I would actually set the game in the 80s, early 80s, pre the AIDS epidemic and all of that sort of thing, and have it as... set it in the era... You actually have to set the setting of the game in the era that the original games were made. That is the only way they work in a modern context. And I think that's what the remake got wrong. I don't even remember the name of the company that did it, because it was
Replay,
such a success.
No.
Yeah.
No, don't mention the war.
Don't give them the advertising.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're cutting that bit out.
We're bleeping it.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't think that was a particular success because, for many reasons, but one of which is I don't think they changed the basic core fundamental of it. But anyway, that's again off the subject. You look at the other Sierra games, which I think content-wise do hold up. What are they going to do? What's their next biggest series? What's Sierra's next biggest series after King's Quest? If we say King's Quest is at the top.
Oh, I don't know. I think that might actually be Space Quest.
Space Quest, maybe. If not Gabriel Knight, one of those two.
Yeah. Could be. I don't
Gabriel
know how
Knight's
much Gabriel Knight sold.
I think the first one did. Critically, I'd say it's their best, but, according to fans. But
Police Quest has dated very poorly. I've replayed those recently, and I think you could do a procedural cop game in the spirit of Police Quest, but you couldn't remake it.
That's funny you say that. There's another game that we've halfway through, Police Quest 2. We've got a bit of a remake going of that.
Awesome.
Because it doesn't work when I did it in a 2005, 2006, 2007 context. Less so now. If you did a police quest nowadays, I think, again, same with Leisure Suit Larry, you would have to set it as an 80s cop show. Those sorts of, TJ Hooker or, Miami Vice, something along those lines. It would have to be that throwback nostalgic thing, which limits your market straight away, which I think has been one of our problems. We've limited our market by doing the remakes first. I think we damaged our own marketplace by giving away high-quality games. Not to, blow smoke up my own ass, but, we gave away high-quality games for nothing, and then we suddenly started wanting to charge for them. I think, that's an issue. And I think that I don't see the Sierra games have been a success, and that really saddens me because I fucking love them, particularly Space Quest. And Manhunter, which never gets any love, because they are.
Sorry. Do finish.
Yeah, I just don't think they. I don't think Manhunter gets any love. I think they're fantastic games, but I don't.
I think that's actually a
I'm
nice.
Out of answers.
I think that's actually a nice way to wrap it up. Because we've been by and large through a lot during our 2-hour conversation here, but yes. We went back to the very beginning, which was that Sierra-like games have tanked, including yours, unfortunately. Yep. And over the course of this hour, these hours, we've reached a number of not conclusions.
This 6-part epic.
Directed by Ridley Scott. We've been around a couple of reasons, and while not going as deep as we could have, I think we've hit a couple of nails on the head without really knowing it. I think it's been very interesting and very rewarding, and I'm probably off to buy your game.
Well, I've certainly learned a lot about the industry, and I'll take some of it away.
Yeah. And I think this is. There's obviously a lot more that we could touch on, but I would invite everyone who's listening to this, if you've listened this far, to hit us up on the social media accounts that Sierra don't use anymore. Namely, you can find our show over at BS Designers, and we would love to hear from you. And you can find
especially if we've wronged you, if we've offended you, let her rip. We don't censor people.
Or just, leave us a comment anywhere. If you snoop around a lot, you can just find our Facebook group, which is facebook.com/group/backseat designers. And, of course, you can check out all of our other shows. Sans, our fabulous guest star, sadly, which is... No, wait, he's on one of the open crowdsource.
He was until his internet connection gave up.
Well, there's that, which is over on backseatdesigners.com. And I'll give the final word to Mr. Mills. Say goodbye, Fred.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Gareth.
I think it's increasingly difficult to market adventure games in this economic climate. Traditional fans do not seem to embrace new stories, while simultaneously demanding greater choice and quality. Getting to part with money is increasingly difficult, and
I think Gladys is on the fritz again.
Shawn, wait your turn.
But
I like
anyway,
the first half of that.
Yeah, me too. We're probably going to stick that full description in the show notes somewhere. But cool. I am going to leave the closing remarks to Mr. Mills. Where can we find you and disagree or agree with you or just poke you like a bear?
Poke me like a bear. Twitter's great. At IQ Adventures or IQ_Adventures. Attention, any complaints to Steve, any praise to Shawn. We're on Facebook, Infamous Quests, IQ. You could come onto our forums where I have the power to delete your comments if you're a rude bastard. But, I probably won't because nobody goes onto forums nowadays, so it doesn't really matter. So, I'm happy to talk about this with anyone, and if I have offended any other designers or anything, because I did get a bit whatever there, I'm happy to tell you why you're wrong and I'm right, and
sounds good. That sounds very, very good.
That's great. I love everyone.
So which address do I write if I want the Space Quest 3 remake to come out? Because
if you want the Space Quest 3 remake, you need Twitter is the best option at IQ_adventures and ask for the Space Quest 3 remake. And please give us the name and contact number of the person at Activision who's given you permission to ask for it and to release it. I have been told that some fans have been in contact with Activision about our remakes. So,
that was a more serious answer than I was expecting, to be honest. I thought you were just going to say, yes, we have a special email address for that. It is fuckyougoohome@IQAdventures.
That was what I was hoping for, but now it just got depressing again.
It's not depressing if you know that the Twitter handle I gave you there is actually Steve's, not mine. So, that's the humor in it.
Yes, I see. Anyway, thank you everyone for participating. This was great fun. And thank you all for listening. We will be back with a full season of Backseat Designers sometime in the near future. We just have to get up off our asses and do it, and also finish the third season of my Space Quest Historian podcast, which is taking up a lot of free time. So anyway, cheers. I'm not going to hold you guys up any further. Take care, and we'll see you around... No, wait, that's the other exit line. We'll just say see you then.
May the force be with you. Thank you, Shawn.
Wrong genre.
Live long and prosper.
No more for today.
I think it's increasingly difficult to market adventure games in this economic climate. Traditional fans do not seem to embrace new stories, while simultaneously demanding greater choice and quality. Getting them to part with money is increasingly difficult, and may require non-traditional approaches to creation, promotion and distribution if a true adventure revival is to occur. The 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 revival